It's time for the Brian Show. It's time for the Brian Show. Everyone's listening to the Brian Show. Time to listen to the Brian Show. Well, there must be the Brian Show. It's time for the Brian Show. Welcome to the Brian Show. Real love bursting out of every speaker. Brian Show. It's time for the Brian Show. Brian Show. It's time. Brian Show. Better than Urkel all the time. Brian Show. It's time for the Brian Show. It's of greater time than you'll have next hour. Brian Show. Oh man, it is time for the Brian Show. You might ask yourself, what is the Brian Show? What is the Brian Show? What will be the Brian Show? I can't tell you what will be the Brian Show, but I can tell you what is the Brian Show, or what the Brian Show is, and that's this. That's what you're listening to right now. Welcome everybody that's tuning in around the country and around the world. Probably 5 of you, if I'm lucky, but I appreciate every single one of you. Tell all your friends. Like I say at the beginning of every show, I got a Twitter, and it's Brian Show Live, I think. And if you want to send me an email, Brian Show Live. Let's see. I always forget if it's The Brian Show or just Brian Show. It's The Brian Show Live at gmail.com. So, and then you can find me on Facebook. There I am. So, welcome everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. It's a weekly show where I just kind of give you a little taste of what I've been thinking about and doing that week. And of course, my dog starts barking right now. But there must be another dog walking down the street. Boy, that's annoying, isn't it? Well, there's nothing I can really do about it right now, so I'll send my wife a text. Here, you can be on the phone with me while I dictate this. Hold on 1 second. All right, you ready? Can you bring the dogs inside, please? ? All right. Off into the ether it went. I don't know what they saw. Who cares? But anyway, so this show is just a way to just kind of blow off some steam, and that's what I try to do every single week. So this past week was was Thanksgiving, and it was fun. I had a good time. I hung out with my wife and her family, and we ate some really good food and had some good drinks, and fun was had by all. By the end of the week, though, my drinking habits are as such as I try to only drink like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I had a couple beers yesterday, but I think I had a drink every single day last week. And then by Saturday, I was just over it. And so I basically swore it off. We'll see how far I get. But, just as I get older, it just makes me feel more and more like shit. And, but I also enjoy it. So I think I enjoy the social aspect of it. Maybe that's something I need to explore, is why am do I like the social aspect of the drinking, or do I like the drinking itself, or what? What about you? What do you think? What do you think about, when you? I mean, I don't think I have a problem. I can. I don't feel the compulsion to drink. Luckily, I don't have alcoholic tendencies, but I enjoy it, and sometimes it's easy to kind of fall into a habit where you probably drink too much, but then I can stop it, and but it kind of causes you to gain weight and makes you feel bad sometimes. So I think my heavier drinking days are behind me, just by necessity. I mean, at some point you either stop or you die, because that's it's kind of the way life is. So what else? What else is going on? It's been a better week this week. A couple weeks ago was a real shit ass week, like I said, and this week has been better. So it's been rough. Past couple weeks. I mean, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I lost my job, and it was I won't get into too many details, but I think it wasn't the separation wasn't handled correctly on their part. But I got another job, so I'm happy about that. So I start Monday, so I'm happy about that, and I'll have some money for Christmas presents, and wasn't looking forward to. I mean, I to be honest with you, I spent the last 2 or 3 weeks just kind of, hanging around the house, doing things that need to be done around the house, which is good, but I would have liked to have the option to do that instead of actually being forced to do that, but it all worked out in the end. So knock on wood, I'll be gainfully employed on Monday, and I put all this whole sorted thing behind me. And then once I get settled, maybe I'll come on and bitch some more, but I may not. We'll see. Right now it's kind of raw, as these things go. There was a really interesting, and I tried to, actually I didn't try to find a clip of it because I don't think it's up yet, but there was a really interesting interview by Howard Stern, and I don't listen to Howard Stern. I mean, I have listened to him, but I don't have Sirius. And somebody posted on Facebook this morning, hey, there's a Howard Stern's interviewing Hillary Clinton. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I think Howard Stern's a good interviewer. He's knowledgeable. He does his research, but he's fun to listen to. He's not. I think his shock jock days are behind him. So somebody posted a link on Facebook, and it was to the Sirius XM website, and I clicked on it, and it said, start your free trial. I was like, I don't care that much. I'm not going to sign up for a free trial just to hear this interview. But somewhere along the line, there was a preview. It was click here for a free preview. So I clicked on it, and it came right up. So I spent probably about an hour listening to the interview, and it was really cool to hear her. I mean, if you've listened to the show or you know me personally, you know kind of where I stand politically, and as I don't think two presidential candidates can be as diametrically opposed as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were and are. And while Donald Trump is embarrassing himself in the United States in front of all of our allies and bowing down and licking the boots of thugs, Hillary Clinton, I don't agree with everything she's done, of course, but I don't think anybody does. I think that's kind of a cliched phrase, but it's true. I don't have to agree with everything she does, but I think generally she has the heart of a public servant. And of course she made a lot of money doing it, but she's good at it, and she's Bill Clinton's wife too, to boot. So there's a lot of there's a lot of charisma and intelligence in that family between both of them. And I thought she would have made a great president. And listening to her speak and just listening to her, I mean, she was a little cagey on a few things. She didn't outright say that Donald Trump was an asshole or anything like that, but you could kind of tell that she was displeased with the mess that has this country is kind of drawn into, and I think some of the criticisms I hear of, or not criticisms, but some of the defenses I hear that she spoke to, of they say, well, the economy's good. It's like, yeah, well, the economy's good, but who is the one that did that? And it was based on stuff that was imposed during the Obama years that he cleaned up from George W. Bush. So Donald Trump's riding high on something he really didn't do, and Hillary had nothing to do with, even though he's his foolish ideas with the tariffs and pissing off all the our allies, and like I just said, bowing down to Russia and bribing or attempting to bribe the Ukraine. And I don't care what anybody says, saying you're going to do a favor for somebody, or I need you to do me a favor, when you're talking about a possible presidential candidate is that's a high crime or misdemeanor if you're in public office. So I think taken all together, it is I think he's. I'm sure that there's a word for it, and I can't think of it now. But he's just kind of blundering through this, but for the economy doing so well, he would have been run out of office a lot sooner. So, but we're kind of due for a economic downturn. It's just the way these things go. So, so that's my political rant. I usually don't do those, but here we are. So, so another thing that I was thinking about was I wanted to talk about was that Peloton ad. I'm sure you've all heard about that. I'll click on it, and basically what it is Peloton is and I have a friend that does it. It's exercise. It's an exercise bike you purchase in your house, and then it hooks up to a screen, or it comes with a screen, and you pay a monthly subscription to get all these exercise ads, or exercise what are they called? Modules or something, exercise classes. So this ad was put online, and you can just search for a Peloton commercial, and it's 30 seconds. So it's
now. A Peloton? Give it up for our first time ride.
All right, first ride.
Okay, so she's giving herself a selfie. And by the way, she's a conventionally attractive thin woman when she comes down the stairs for Christmas, and she's on her first ride. So here we go. So she's taking a selfie. It's my first
Nervous,
ride.
but excited. Let's do this. 5 days in a row.
5 days in a row. I don't know who she's broadcasting that to. Maybe it's Instagram or something.
Surprised? I am. 6 a.m. Yay.
6 a.m. Yay. Okay.
Sing with the sun.
That was totally worth it.
Let's go, Grace in Boston. 50 rides.
She just said my name. A year ago, I didn't realize how much this would change me.
So a year ago, she looks exactly the same, still thin, still fit, and she's sitting in front of a television with her husband or significant other, watching a video of these clips that she's taped over the years, or over the year.
Thank you.
This holiday, give the gift of Peloton.
Okay, you ready?
So, you can read some of the. I don't think it says. Somebody said it was a Black Mirror episode. I just don't. I don't think it's that far. I think she's. I don't see anything cynical about it, where she's, it's a cry for help, and she's trying to please her master and saying, look what I did. But my only thing with it is that if you're going to try and show progress on somebody's with somebody with their exercise regimen, I think you got to actually show some progress. So she looks exactly the same as from when she began to when she ended it. So in that respect, I didn't think it was very effective because you're watching it going, okay, so she already looks like she's a she's fit and tone and likes to work out a lot, and now she's doing it every day for her husband. I don't know. That was my only beef with it, and it wasn't much of a beef. It was but people were going kind of crazy about it online, so I thought that was interesting. Is it pronounced Peloton or Peloton? I like it. I like saying Peloton, but that's just me. There's also the other controversy was there's a singer named Billie Eilish, who I think she's 17 or 18, very young, and I think it was Jimmy Kimmel. I didn't watch the clip. I just read an article about it, or I think I saw it on Twitter, where Jimmy Kimmel showed a picture of Van Halen and the band Van Halen, and she didn't know who it was, and people were giving her shit about how she didn't know who Van Halen was. And I was reading both sides of it about, most of them came down on the side of she's young, why would she know a band from the 80s? And then, which I understand. And then the other side was you should, kind of know your musical history if you're a musician. And I don't really like, I've listened to a couple songs. It's not my kind of music. I really like Van Halen, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Is my personal view is that I think when I was 17, so if I was 17, the music that would have been popular 2 decades before, or 3 decades before, would have been the 60s and 70s, and I didn't have the amount of knowledge I have now, but I had a pretty good working idea of who the big bands were back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Obviously the 80s, because I grew up in the 80s. But it's kind of weird how somebody, even at 17 or 18, wouldn't know who Van Halen is. So what that says to me is that, when you're around that age, you need somebody to kind of guide you in the ways of music, and I don't know what she listens to, obviously, but she sounds like she doesn't have anybody to expand her palette a little bit, past whatever, however kids find music these days online. So that's a fault of her parents. Okay, her parents need to step up and tell them. You have a hot take? Okay, Kat's got a hot take.
Hi, this is Kat, and I have a hot take on this issue. Van Halen is not worth knowing 30 years later. Boom.
I totally disagree.
At least, fine, their music, fine, but not a picture of them. What do they even look like? I know what they look like, but I swear to God, if you showed me a picture of them, I'd be like, who cares? Like, who cares? Shit, sorry. I just dropped a glass of water.
Just knocked over a glass of
such
water.
a hot take.
So, yeah, I agree that, she not knowing what they look like is different than not having heard of them. And so,
Even if their music is good, who cares about a 30-year-old picture? That's my point.
yeah, okay. That's a good take. The water's getting cleaned up, I promise.
So that's the second glass of water I spilled today.
Can I have some more water?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, so
The excitement of a live show, by the way.
I know.
Water gets filled. Hot takes get dropped.
I know.
Glasses get refilled.
I know. I think the other takeaway I had from it was, as much as people were saying that she's why would she know who Van Halen is? Van Halen sucks, and that's where I was like, nope, stop the brakes. Van Hagar, I don't like. Okay, but Eddie Van Halen revolutionized guitar-based rock in the 70s and the 80s, and to say simply, well, they're just an old dinosaur band, thank you, that is not relevant anymore and that they suck, really shows a lack of understanding of the band themselves. Their first album is widely recognized. It's called Van Halen, self-titled, as Running with the Devil. Jamie's Crying, You Really Got Me. Like every single song was a hit, just about, and even the ones that aren't are awesome. So, and then if you listen to that and just kind of how out of left field that album was in 1978, whenever it came out, and you had Van Halen 2, and you had I think Diver Down or Women and Children First, Fair Warning. I always get those three confused as to which came out at which time. And then, of course, 1984 came out in 1984, which was the last one with David Lee Roth. And so I think it does a disservice to Billie Eilish to say that she is, that she has to know who these bands are. I think that, for anybody to be a musician and, or singer or whatever she is. I don't know if she plays any instruments, and have a well-rounded knowledge of just popular music. You got to go back to the 60s and the 50s and then work your way forward, just to kind of have a history of kind of where you came from, rock music and funk music and soul music and hip hop. And it's daunting, but there are ways that you can do that.
Sorry, breaking in one more time. We don't know that she doesn't know who Van Halen is, do we?
She said she didn't know who they were.
And she never heard their music?
No.
Okay.
Right.
You're saying it doesn't matter what they look like.
I know. They asked him, do you know Van Halen? And she goes, who? Yeah. So where was I? So it does a disservice to her, but also does a disservice to Van Halen themselves because they weren't just a one-hit wonder, and they don't suck. They are awesome, and that's a objective fact. Fair Warning is probably my favorite album, but I could take any of the first 6 or so. The Van Hagar stuff, take or leave it. I don't really think it's all that great, but that doesn't negate the earlier stuff that they did. And just from a musical standpoint, a musician standpoint, Eddie Van Halen kind of can't be beat. And when he was in his prime, David Lee Roth could sing his ass off, and really so could Michael Anthony, the bass player, and the competent drumming of Alex Van Halen. He's as much a part of it as anybody, and he wasn't real flashy, but it's kind of hard to beat Eddie Van Halen, and so that's kind of the way it is. So those are the hot takes from this week, and what else do we got here? So I think that was it. So. Here's a little interview that I thought was interesting, and I won't tell you what it is. You just listen to the context.
Us.
Yes, I
Yeah, I want to
did.
show that. Just
Yes.
I love that picture. Look at this
Yes.
picture of
My name was Edna. They call me Big Ed.
Big Ed.
Yeah, I was
Can you get
oldest
that
hooker
camera
in
real
Shilly
close up
Verde.
that of? And see, I think that's a great.
Oldest hooker in Shilly Verde.
The oldest hooker. You played a hooker in that?
Oh, yes.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And that was with Tab Hunter
Mm-hmm.
and Cesar Romero.
Laney Kazan.
But you haven't-
Divine.
Divine, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Funny. Is he funny?
Oh, yes.
Is he? But tell me something about your new movie out. You have a new one out, Moving...
Moving Violations, well, it's been out. It came out about the same time, Lust in the Dust.
Oh, it did, uh-huh.
But they both disappeared sort of fast, which I don't make any explanations about those things, because I don't know. But Moving Violations was a PG-13, and if it hadn't been for me, it wouldn't have to be even a 13.
I just thought that was funny. I was watching it today. So, as this show is, it's kind of free form. Here's a cover I did. I did the of "Losing My Religion" by REM, that I did on my iPhone, and I had GarageBand, and so I just rediscovered it. It's probably about a year or two old, and so here you go. I think it's cool. I think I have a different take on it than the normal mandolin based "Losing My Religion" original, and I just watched a video on that, the making of, or not the making of, but it's called "What Makes This Song Great." By this guy named Rick Beato, Beato, and he's a really interesting. He's a honest to goodness musician. Reads music, understands notes, understands. I think he went to music school, music college, and has a degree in music, and really loves rock and roll, and breaks down these songs. So anyway, I look forward to watching those, but it reminded me as I watched it, I did a cover of it. So listen to it. Tell me what you think. And I'll be back in a couple minutes.
It's bigger than you, and you are not me. Place that I will go to, distance in your eyes. Oh no, I've said too much, said enough. That's me in the corner, that's me in the spotlight, losing my religion, trying to keep up with you, and I don't know if I can do it. Oh no, I've said too much, haven't said enough. Thought that I heard you laughing, thought that I heard you sing. I thought I saw you try. Every whisper, every waking hour, I'm choosing my confessions, trying to keep an eye on you, like a hurt, lost, blinded fool. Oh no, I've said too much, I've said enough. Consider this, the hint of the century. Consider this, brought me to my knees. Feel, what if all these fantasies come flailing around, and I've said too much. I thought that I heard you laughing, I thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try. just a dream. That was just a dream. That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion. Trying to keep up with you, and I don't know if I can do it. Oh no, I've said too much, haven't said enough. I thought that I heard you laughing, thought that I heard you sing. I think I thought I saw you try. That was just a dream. Try, cry, why try? That was just a dream, just a dream, just a dream.
That fucking suck. Why do you think anyone cares about your rant cover?
Shut up!
Welcome back to the Brian Show. Welcome back to the Brian Show. Welcome back to the Brian Show. Whoa. Welcome back to the Brian Show. Oh, the Brian Show. Oh, the Brian Show. Oh, the Brian Show. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Brian Show. Oh, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Brian Show. Whoops. So I picked up a few pointers over the years, and I figured I would share them with you. I call them Brian's life lessons. Life lesson number 1. If you go out to eat, make sure to tell the waiter or the waiteress that you must have hated the food, but only after you've eaten all of it. Life lesson number 2. Medical marijuana is just regular marijuana for people that can't admit that they would get high even if they didn't have cancer. Brian's life lesson number 3. You should only defecate once, in the morning, at home. It's a policy in most offices that spending 3 more minutes in the bathroom means you're pooping. And that gets factored into your yearly review. Not only that, everybody tells everybody. Number 4. Rub yourself with dirt and manure before you go into a job interview. It'll show your interviewers that you are willing to come in from the farm just to work. Brian's life lesson number 5. Never cook dinner. All evening meals should be a microwave Lunchable. Yes, that's with the plastic on. You may ask yourself why. Because the sodium is good for your skin. Makes it shine. Number 6. If you have a cat or cats, shave your phone number into its side every week in case it gets lost. But you gotta do it every week because it'll grow back, obviously. Unless it's one of those hairless cats, and then use a non-toxic Sharpie. Maybe use puff paint, and once it falls off, do it again. You don't want to hurt the cat. Life lesson number 7. If you're divorced, always call your child on Christmas. If you're in prison, make sure you tell your child that Daddy was saving Santa from doing cocaine during a sleigh stop by eating all the cocaine. See? Daddy is a hero. Life lesson 7.5. Make sure you proofread these life lessons so they make sense when you read them. Brian's life lesson 8. Bed Knobs and Broomsticks is a movie. It's not merely instruments to stick up your ass. Brian's life lessons number 9. If you drink kombucha, make sure you tell people as often as possible. And make sure you talk about probiotics and, quote, good bacteria. Brian's life lesson number 10. The perfect Fireball whiskey recipe is 2 parts Fireball whiskey, 3 parts Coca-Cola, splash of bitters, shake it all over a couple big cubes of ice, and then promptly pour the whole thing into the sink. Brian's life lesson number 11. If you start to gain weight, don't buy larger clothes. Buy smaller clothes and wear them so tight that your coworkers feel uncomfortable. Why should you be the only one that suffers? Brian's life lesson number 12. It's okay to feed babies Coca-Cola and honey exclusively. It'll help dissolve the children's teeth, and your dental bills will be lower during the course of their childhood. Brian's life lesson number 13. Grandparents should only be called grandfather and grandmother. No pawpaw, meemaw, gumma. Grandchildren benefit from proper Puritan distance. Brian's life lesson number 14. There is no I in team, but also fuck you. We're not helping you. And just in time for Christmas, the final life lesson, Brian's life lesson number 15. Christmas is not just a time for spending time with family and friends, exchanging gifts, and reflecting on the birth of Christ if you're into that sort of thing. It's also a time for alcoholics and drug addicts in recovery to ring bells at you when you enter a grocery store. And that was Brian's life lessons. There will always be more, I promise. But the 15 or so are the ones that matter. Oh, by the way, you can also stream, or not stream. You can also chat live as well, if you're so inclined. You can chat, and I'll be able to talk to you. So last week, I told you a little bit about how somebody said that I couldn't sing, and I told them that I could sing by singing. Well, I got a comment today, or actually it was yesterday, about how they thought that I didn't prove anything, that I couldn't sing. So all I gotta say to them is, what do you mean I can't sing? I can sing just like a heavenly angel that fell from heaven and bruised his wings. I just fell from heaven like an angel. So that ought to assuage my or contradict my oh my goodness, might contradict those the haters. About to brush my shoulders off. Oh, it sounds like we're getting a breaking news alert. Oh my goodness. I'm being handed some breaking news. Hold on. Let me. Okay, breaking news here. Looks like Betty White is still alive. She is still with us. She's 90 years old. And another breaking news. this. It says the Brian Show is still not funny. That's. I mean, I knew that already, but that's a tough pill to swallow. That's a tough pill to swallow. The breaking news on that one, I didn't like that one at all. But anyway, so as I am wont to do, part of this show is to talk to you about, and in part, what I think are lessons or things I've learned about mental illness. And I've done paranoid schizophrenia. I've done bipolar disorder. I think I've done paranoid schizophrenia. Have I? I know I did bipolar. I don't know. I think I might have been saving paranoid schizophrenia. Shout out to all the Brians out there. I forgot to do that at the top of the show. Brian Dennehy, Brian Austin Green, Brian McKnight, Brian Cranston. Are there any other Brians? The Brian I met at the Trader Joe's yesterday, who spelled it the right way, Brian. Shout out to him. He's a British guy. So all those British Brians from the British Isles. So this week we're going to talk about dissociative identity disorder, which is also known as, or was previously known as, multiple personality disorder. And it is controversial, to say the least. Some of the symptoms are that the person has distinct, two or more distinct personality states, accompanied by the inability to recall personal information and a loss of identity as to individual distinct personality states. And it's also part of the dissociative amnesia subsumed under the dissociative identity disorder. And the majority of the patients with DID report childhood sexual or physical abuse, though the accuracy of these reports is controversial. And identities may be unaware of each other, according to the DSM. So the controversy with that is they don't know what causes it. So it could be a reaction to trauma. It could be something you're born with. But the people that have studied it, there's the commonalities between them are childhood sexual trauma, but the controversy is that some psychologists don't believe it's an actual disorder. It's something that is kind of either the symptoms are indicative of some other disease, mental disorder, or they're induced by the therapist themselves. And I thought that was interesting, based on just some of the things that people got in trouble in the 80s by these false memories, and so yeah. Let me see here. I apologize for the boringness, but I have my tabs up. So that's just kind of an overview of it. Here we go. So let me give you a little better idea of. It's a very rare disorder, and usually have two or more distinct personalities, and each one might have alternate traits. So something that got me thinking is there was a few years ago, well, back in the 70s, not a few years ago, back in the 70s, I remember watching this movie at some point. I don't remember when. It's called Sybil, and it's about a woman named Shirley her pseudonym was Sybil, and she had at the time, multiple personality disorder. But the actual real person was named Shirley Ardell Mason, and she there was a book written that called Sybil: The True Story of a Woman Possessed by 16 Separate Personalities, and it told a story of her different personalities, and it was made into a movie with Sally Field as Sybil, and but the book's veracity has been challenged, and Shirley Mason actually wrote a book basically disavowing it and saying that no, actually this is not what actually happened, and they think that she had just been hypnotized, and that her therapist had kind of induced her to do a little bit, to embellish a little bit. So they probably think she had paranoid schizophrenia, but the Sybil thing is mostly fiction. There was also in my research, there was also a guy named Christine Sizemore, depicted with dissociative identity disorder in a book called Three Faces of Eve, and that came out a couple of decades before Sybil came out, and there's not a whole lot on her, but it was another thing where she had that she had a history of trauma, and these triggered the selves, the personalities that were already there, and again, it's kind of, nobody's sure kind of if what's true and what's not, because psychology was kind of not in its infancy in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, but it certainly wasn't as advanced as it is today. But Three Faces of Eve shows the book recounts in detail the case of Eve White, a young housewife locked in an unhappy marriage, well-meaning, overwhelmed husband, and she goes to therapy seeking relief for headaches, and there's Eve White gives way to a party girl named Eve Black, and Eve Black knows about Eve White and thinks that Eve White's life and marriage is a boring waste of time. And then finally, the third face is Jane, who is a third and more stable personality, and over therapy sessions, several traumatic childhood events were revealed, and over time she got divorced, and it became a bestseller. So I guess her doctors wrote this. And Sizemore Costner, the Eve, became a mental health advocate, and yeah, so not a whole lot of stuff on her. So I thought it was interesting. I probably didn't get across quite as well as I should have. But I'm also not a psychologist either. So it's not so much a disorder that you can point to and say, well, that person has that. Just, you can point to somebody says that person is clinically depressed, or that person has bipolar disorder. With these, it's almost always female, and it with dissociative identity disorder, and there is a controversy or a disagreement between whether it's actually real or not. So I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was interesting stuff. And the people that that have dissociative identity disorder also have a host of these other things like bipolar disorder, depression, schizophrenia. So I'm no expert in it. I don't know. I've met plenty of people that are one way to your face and a different way to everybody else, and you could argue that those are a couple of faces of Janus, Janus, or two faces of Eve or Adam, depending on how you want to frame it. But I don't know if those are actually borderline personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder. I'm hearing a bunch of banging. I'm not sure what's going on. So, man, it's only 8:50. I got 10 minutes. What am I going to talk about for 10 minutes? Man. See, that's the thing about this show is that at the end of the week, at the end of the show, I don't have, I either have ideas or I don't. And at the end of the show, I usually have exhausted all the ideas I want to talk about. But that's usually, I can stretch it to an hour for something interesting. But, that's how these things go, because it's experimental. I'm not a professional at this. I have fun with it and do what I can do. But, at the end of the show, I usually don't have anything in the hopper for the next week. So I just, as ideas come to me, I jot them down and then try to, work them into the next show. So each week is something completely different, and I try not to repeat myself. So, that's just kind of the way it goes. But it's a process, and I thank you for sticking with me. Or maybe you've already fallen off at this point. They can't all be 100% winners, but but I spent a lot of time just kind of thinking about what I want to talk about, and a lot of times I wake up in the middle of the night and I have an idea, and it's a little peek behind the curtain, just something to do. So anyway, I think I'm going to end a little early because I'm boring myself, so I don't want to bore you guys. So I think I'm going to do that unless I got anything else that I feel is worth talking about, but I don't think it is. I will say that I have been working my way through The Sopranos, and it still holds true as to what I talked about in week 4, the 4th show, where they were always eating. They're still eating a shitload every single episode. I'm at the end of the 4th season. I just finished the 4th season today. There's 6 seasons, so probably every 5 minutes or so there, no lie, probably every 5 to 10 minutes there's some kind of food. So it is what it is. So I thought it's interesting. So be on the lookout for that. So until next week, have yourself a merry little Christmas, and I will see you soon. Bye.